Now, I do realise I have been manufacturer bashing for the past few videos, and it is easy to do because you take the product and you point out what's wrong and you moan about it, which is what I've been doing. And I wanted to address that balance really just by saying how good the products actually are. I'm only talking about the last kind of 5% or 10% of the issues that we see in the caravans. For the vast majority, they're very good. And also, when we look at the product, we have to realise what it takes to actually produce anything near like as good a product as we're seeing on the forecourts in the form that they are. So if you had a big warehouse and it was empty and you said, right, make me a caravan, and you wanted it to come out like anything like we've got at the moment on the forecourts, then I think it'd be a very difficult thing to do. The caravans are built on the history and the legacy that they've already kind of accomplished. So they've been, a lot of the manufacturers have been going for 40, 50 years, and they started from scratch, and then they've worked their way through with a kind of evolution of the caravan. So the next stage of production is built on the previous ones. So I think we need to take a step back and have a look at how good the products are really. They are produced to a very high standard, and I think the vast majority of them are very good. Now, I have been trying to get to the bottom of how big these issues are. Is it just the fact that we've got social media now and more people are more engaged in the general discussion? So we're seeing every single issue. So every cant rail, every sunroof, every floor that we see that has people have an issue with, then we're seeing them on the forums and on the Facebook pages and things like that. So we're more aware of them. So is it a case that we just know more about the problems, or are the problems getting worse? And that's very difficult to know. I would have thought that the manufacturers know what kind of warranty claims they have historically, and they can keep a track on that. I expect that's what they do. So maybe they are the only ones that know how bad these issues are. And I criticise myself, and I also, I think about these things. Am I being harsh? Am I talking about this stuff out of turn? But because of the history that I've had with the manufacturers that I alluded to in the last video, with a bit of a background on why I do this, then I think that now is a time to really say, right, hang on a minute. I've had a few times where I've given the manufacturers the benefit of the doubt. And I've actually been on their side a lot of the time where I think it was several years ago now, I did a video, which is so long ago I can't even find it anymore, that I was a bit, not fed up, but I was a bit frustrated with the some of the posts and the things that are being said online, and they were kind of indicating that the manufacturers are evil, money grabbing people sat on big thrones up somewhere, up in an ivory tower somewhere. They don't care about the consumer or the industry, and all they want is profit. And it was like typical Swift, typical Bailey. And it was kind of like, this is what they do. They don't care about us. And because I knew the people that are producing the caravans, and I used to go on when I was selling them their courses, and we'd have a look at the new products and go around the factories and things. That wasn't the case. They weren't those kind of people, and they were very passionate about what they do, and they wanted to get a product into the consumer's hands that would stand the test of time. And so I did a video kind of explaining this and explaining why some of the struggles that the manufacturers have to produce a product that we can buy. And I think the gist of the video was that we have to make it for a price, or they have to make it for a price. And I think back then I said £50,000, which is quite strange because you can pay that for a caravan now. So relatively, I would say that if we can make a caravan that costs £80,000, and also we have to make it for a weight, because you have to be able to tow it with a general car. So the weight was the issue. If you can make it 3.5 tons, then with those two things, you can make a product that would stand up to our criticism, and it wouldn't fall apart, because you can make that weight and that price. You can use the production methods and also the materials that would make it last. You can use heavier wood, you could use heavier metal in there to make it stand being bounced down the road at 60 miles an hour. So I was on the side of the manufacturers. I think actually the video went around the Swift offices because it was what they wanted to say, but obviously they couldn't, because it's not very professional to say, look, hang on a minute, cut us some slack here, which is what I was doing. And I stood behind that for a long time. But now, several years later, I've kind of, I still feel that. I still feel that we can judge the manufacturers quite harshly because of the issues we're seeing, when in reality, like I said, the products are extremely good, and we can still go out caravanning with them, and they look amazing, and all the technology in them now is far different to how it was before. So, but I have changed my mind to some degree, because back then, like I said, I was giving them the benefit of the doubt because the new construction methods were fairly fresh, and they were still going through a bit of development. And I remember being in around about 2017 or 18 at the shows, and I had a few customers that were buying themselves out of issues. So they'd bought a caravan and it was 3 or 4 years old, and they had some issues with it. So they thought, well, look, that was a Friday afternoon van. Let's just move on and we'll buy another one. And they were giving the manufacturer the benefit of the doubt because they were still buying the same manufacturer. I had a few that said, oh, I'm never going to buy a Swift. I'm never going to buy a Bailey again, and I'm going to buy something else. But you kind of into the frying pan, out the frying pan into the fire kind of scenario. There's problems with all of them. It just depends on what you want to look at. So I certainly had back then people buying themselves out of a problem, thinking that the manufacturers would have solved those problems, and they're buying new, so therefore, everything's going to be great. So we then go on to now, and this is why I'm concerned about what is happening, and I think this is a silent killer of the industry that is bubbling away in the background, and I think could maybe bite everyone on the backside, especially with the new and the pre-owned actually. And the reason I say that is because I had a 2015 Caravan in just this week with the cant rail had gone, and we took it apart, and it was being built. It was built in the same way because obviously that was an older one. And then I got to thinking, well, how long have the cant rails been fitted in the same way? And that was 2015, and it was probably a little bit before that. And we could actually see the wallboard poking up through in between the roof and the side panel. It's kind of like it was poking up there, and it was sticking out proud. And so the cant rail went on the top and was sealed either side, but it couldn't really do anything because it was kind of poking up through the wallboard was poking up and kind of pushing up against it. So that wasn't helping the sealant trying to adhere to the panels even further. So we took that rail off and sealed along the side and put a new rail on. And to be fair, the sealant had only kind of failed for probably about 4 or 5 inches, something like that. But it let the water in, and you could quite clearly see where it had gone in and down inside the caravan. So then I thought, well, this is the issue I have. The earliest van that we've seen being built in the same way was 2023. We had a new one, and it was when we had it on the forecourt, it was kind of tilted to one side, and then when we sold it, obviously the customer used it and it tilted the other way, and then the water went straight in because there was no sealant there. So the earliest one that we've done is 2023 with this cant rail issue. Now I don't know whether 2024s or 25s have been updated or anything's changed because we haven't seen one fail yet. And it might be just the fact that it hasn't had time to fail, or it might be the fact that they've changed the way that they've done things. So this is my main issue, is we have 10 years worth of that caravan being built in the same way. I'm taking the cant rail as an instance. There are lots of different things that I'll talk about in a minute that kind of do the same thing. We have an issue, and it's still being built in the caravan today, and therefore, if it's been failing in the past, I can only see it's going to fail in the future. That's my issue. And that 2015 van is relatively new. It's still got lots of usable life in it. It's still worth, I don't know, £11,000-12,000, something like that. So it's not at the end of its life by any means. And they could then argue, well, how long can that sealant last? Has it got a 10-year shelf life? Should it last 25 years? Which, I've got caravans that I sell that are 25 years old that are perfectly good and perfectly usable. So you can't get to 10 years and then throw it out and say, well, the sealant's no good. It's not worth anything, because that's just not the case. So that was my main issue. And the whole thing about using sealant as the first line of defense, that's the problem I think that needs addressing. If I was to start building a caravan from scratch, the first thing I would say was that you can't use sealant for the first line of defense. If you do that, it fails. We know that. We've got history of that. I can't see how that can change. We've had several kind of types of sealant being used. We have different treatments before the sealant goes on, but it still seems to fail. So my main thing would be thing number one would be engineer the problem out. So the construction methods used don't need sealant to stop the water coming in. And let's take this cant rail as an issue. The roof is on the top, and then the wallboard comes along as a sideboard comes alongside it like that. So you've got a gap here, which we have seen them without sealant in. I'm not sure whether they're sealed nowadays at the factory, where you've got a sealant there, then you've got the cant rail that goes on top, and then you've got sealant there and sealant there. That's using sealant as the first line of defense. If you take the sealant away, the water comes along, goes straight in the caravan. So my thoughts would be, why do we not overlap the roof over the side panel and then screw down through into the polyurethane that way? Therefore, if that cant rail seal goes, it will go down underneath the cant rail and down the side of the caravan. Now there is going to be a joint here which could be sealed, but that would be a lot harder for water to get, come down and then in, rather than along and then in, because of gravity. And then also you would then need a kind of escape routes for the vertical side of the cant rail for the water to come through and out. If you could lap it so that there was a way of kind of joining it like that, so that the water had to kind of go down and up and in and through like that, that would be even better. But that is dead simple to say with me stood behind the counter talking to YouTube. There is probably lots of reasons why that can't happen. Otherwise, I'm 99% convinced that the manufacturers would do that. There must be a reason why they do not overlap the top of the roof over the side panel so that the water goes down the outside of the caravan and can't get in. And then you use sealant to back that up. So that the sealant is the second line of defense, and if it fails, all right, it fails, but it's not the end of the world. Using sealant as the first line of defense, I just don't think works. Well, it doesn't work. We know that because we've got cant rails leaking. That's the same with the sunroofs as well. Now I know we've got the Swift sunroofs. There's a fix coming for that with using clamping systems. I'm not quite sure why that's where that is. I may well have jumped the gun and spoken about that out of turn, because we did ask Swift about it and it wasn't ready for production to go out to the general fixers yet, I don't believe. That's what we were told anyway. But I know there are some dealers out there using it. And whether that's just to test it to see if it works or not, I'm not sure, or whether they just haven't told everyone and we're just fitting them in the old way. I'm not sure about that. So there is definitely something coming. Again, I'm a bit out the loop with the manufacturer, so I don't know whether 25s have had the clamping systems used from the manufacturer or what's going on there. So I need to find out a little bit more about that. Same with the window rubber around the front windows. On Swifts, they pull away and they don't adhere to the side of the panels. Now I don't know about that. I don't know what fix could be done for that, because you've got a hole and then you've got window rubber and then you've got sealant. There would have to be a whole new system for that. I'm not exactly sure how to overcome that. But like I said, the manufacturers are very clever people. There must be reasons why some of these things aren't being done. But it is frustrating when you have an issue that is 10 years old now and still being used, or potentially still being used. It may well have changed, I don't know. I did actually write an email to Swift, or I drafted an email actually, and it was kind of like that scene in Pulp Fiction when he's in the second-hand shop and there's some baddies downstairs he has to dispatch, where he gets, I think he gets a baseball bat, then a golf club, then a samurai sword. I drafted it to my rep at the time, And then I thought, no, I know the sales manager. I'll send it to the sales manager. And I thought, no, actually, I know people at the top. So I drafted it to Amy Archer, but then I chickened out. I didn't send it because I thought it's not really my place. And who am I to say these things? Because in my previous video that I'd done, I was now doing the same thing as I was criticizing everyone else for doing, is saying, look, the manufacturers know what they're doing, let them crack on with it and give them the benefit of the doubt. And who am I to ask those kind of questions? But maybe I should have been braver and asked, what's been done about that? How come we're still we're 10 years down the line, and potentially, like I say, I don't know if that's actually true, that the camp rails and things like that are still being produced in the same way when we know that they leak. And if it's out of warranty, it's going to be in the hands of the owner to pay for it. That job, I think, was about £1,500, something like that. And the issue, the bigger issue with the cant rails is that it's okay if you're there to see the water come down the side of the caravan and you wipe it up, and then you put some swift tape, we call it, which is the clear gorilla tape over the rail, and it stops it coming in, and then you get it fixed. That's not so bad. It's still going to cost you 1,500 quid per side to do. The worst thing is if you put it in storage and you don't see it for a few months, and it starts getting in 5 minutes after you put it there, and then the water then damages the upholstery, damages the furniture, and everything else. That's a different ball game, and I have seen one or two of those. Then you're talking, a few thousand, and significant amount of work to get those cupboards off and replace those. So that's the issue I have with the cant rails, is that it's okay if you catch it. If you don't, then it's going to get worse and worse. And these vans are going to carry on being used for another 10 years. So we are going to see this over and over again. There is a test you can just check your cant rails. We get a spatula and kind of just push it along. If you have a look at my cant rail video, you can see where you can tell where this spatula goes straight in, and that's where the water's getting in. So it's worth getting up there and then checking out. It might be worth pointing them up. I'm not a huge fan of doing that generally, because unfortunately most people make a right mess of it, and then it makes it harder to get it off, because you've got to get all that that sealant off before you can start repairing it. So that clear gorilla tape, I know it's a little bit Heath Robinson, but it really does do the job. We've had an issue where we couldn't get the rails for 6 months, and that tape stopped it getting in for that period of time. So it might be worth, prevention is better than cure, maybe putting some of that over it, I'm not sure, or pointing it up if you're good at pointing up. But every time you do that, you'll have to change it once a year, I think, because it doesn't last that long before the movement and the sun and all this kind of stuff stops it being effective. So you do a bit of research on that and see if you can point it up with some CT1 or something like that, or the Cyclex 512, something as good as that. And then you may have to do that once a year, but it would save you having an issue. Or get a cover for the winter. That's the other thing you can do. So I didn't send off that email, and maybe I should have done, because the questions would be, we've had these issues for 10 years, or at least 10 years, and are we still producing, are the vans still being produced in that same manner, so that we're using sealant as the first line of defense, and what's the likelihood of that failing in the future? We also have to take into account that they're produced by people, which again is another miraculous thing. They're not put together by robots. There are CNC machines and things like that that cut the holes to make it a little more precise, but essentially the product's put together by people with screwdrivers and sealing guns and hammers and things like that. So it is amazing how they can get that product to anywhere near like it is. But with any human kind of intervention, there could be an issue with that particular day. The guy missed it. There's stuff that we use now called Prep N and Prep G, which actually keys the surface up to allow the sealant to adhere to. But it's only as good, the sealant is only as good as that key is. So if a piece is a mist, or it's a day where it's foggy outside and the humid and it's the moisture content in the air is too high, or there could be 1,000 different reasons why that sealant doesn't actually adhere, and one of them is the fact that it's put on by a person, and then everything else could be an issue as well. So there must be a kind of an amount that fail. With any process, you're going to have some that fail, and whether it's 10%, 20%, 1%, I don't know what that is. But I think as you add time into that, that means I think the more the percentage kind of goes up. So the longer you're going to use these caravans, the more chances you're going to have an issue with that. And the sunroofs, I say that I know they've got a clamping system now, but that is inherently a sealing issue as well. Before they leaked because the sealant wasn't keeping the sunroofs in, so we started to prep it better and use more sealant, and then because you use more sealant it was more rigid, and that's when we started to get the cracks. That's my theory anyway. It could be wrong, and if I could be put straight on that by someone, I'm not sure, but that's to me feels like the natural progression of an issue. Is you put more sealant in it to stop it leaking, it makes it more rigid. They don't realise that they then have to make the materials thicker to allow for that extra stress. So Dometic didn't make a thicker glass because it would cost more and it would weigh more. So that's not what they want to do. But in theory, if there's more stress going through something, then I either thought it had to be thicker and more robust to allow for that extra stress. So of course they didn't know that at the time, so they just keep on using the same sunroofs, and I think that's why we get the cracks. So I'm hoping that the new clamping system is going to allow for movement, and it's going to be able to give a proper seal. And apparently, I'm not sure, you can take it out and put it back in again. So if you do damage it or something like that, it's changeable. But I'm not sure on that. I need to find out. I'm picking on Swift there a lot. But it's only because that's what I know, and that's what I see the most of, because they're the most produced caravan out there, and down here we see lots of them. Obviously we've got the same issue with the Bailey floors. Again, I'd love to think that in the last couple of years there's been a change of how they produce things. If they're still producing them with a floor underneath that can rot, and if Swift are still producing the cant rails in the same way, and the window rubbers that fail, then there's not much you can say about that. I can only assume that there's very good reasons for it. But why Bailey don't use a composite floor like Swift do, at least underneath, I don't know. Why the manufacturers don't manage the water. So we've been trying for years and years, or they've been trying for years and years and years to keep the water out. It's kind of a losing battle. Water is an amazing, it's got amazing properties. It can find its way in pretty much anywhere. So rather than trying to keep it out, unless you use one monochrome, not monochrome, what's the word? One piece of body that has no joints in it, that's the only way you're going to do that. The other way you can do it is by managing the water. I mean, back in the day, I used to have a Mini that I couldn't stop from leaking, so I drilled a hole in the floor and it just ran out the bottom. And I know modern cars have holes in the bottom of the doors to allow water down through and out. So rather than try and stop it getting in, allow it to get in, but then manage where it goes. So you could have, channels there with holes in that can divert it and move it away from where it can damage stuff. Again, it's dead easy. Stood here behind the counter talking in YouTube, how you can solve these problems. And again, there's probably thousands of reasons why you can't do those things. So I don't want to stand here and go, oh, why didn't you do this and why didn't you do that? It's dead easy, because I know it's not. And it's very easy when it's not your money and your time and your product, to say these things and say, well, why didn't you just do this? Yeah, there is probably hundreds of reasons why that isn't achievable, and there's lots of things that we don't know as lay people that the manufacturers have to adhere to, much less, like say, weight, cost. That could be the major issues that are preventing them from doing something, and also legislation. I think the NCC have, I know they have to go through a rigorous process to to be able to be cleared for sale to the general public. So there's probably lots of things there that we don't know, or I don't know about as well. But it is frustrating. If I go, away from kind of being on the side of the manufacturers onto the consumer side, then you're spending a lot of money on these things. You want them to last. The fact that the inherent problems are still maybe potentially being built into the products, and when we know that they're going to fail, that's my main issue. To me, if you have a new process, you get a year to kind of put it out there and see what happens, and then you can put it right, and that's in the second year. And then the third year, if you're still not putting it right and it's still an issue, then it's time to look at the drawing board and start again. When we're 10 or 12 or 13 years down the line and still being produced in the same way, to me it's not unforgivable, but it doesn't make sense to me. And again, when the manufacturers are trying to give out a glossy brochure and say how great their products are, and you go to the shows and everything's about how fantastic they are, and in the back of my head I'm still thinking, well, is that cant rail still built the same way? Is that Bailey floor going to give me problems in a couple of years' time? What's going to happen there? And those are, like I said, those are the issues I pick on because they're easy to pick on. There are a few others, but again, the majority of the Caravan is extremely good, and I'd just like to make that clear that I'm not just having to go at the bits that are issues. Another thing which is a bit perplexing is silence. If these issues have been solved, and again, we all know about them, I know about them, you know about them, the manufacturer knows about them, just no one is really saying anything about it, unless you talk to people in the industry like I do. I do go to the shows and I do go to these places, and we all talk about what's going on in the moment. And you think, oh, it might be just me finding these things, but I'm only a small little dealer. And when you then kind of scale that up to other to big dealers, I did hear, I have heard a few tales of caravans being lined up, especially when we had the front end loose issue. And there was that kind of a recall. There was caravans lined up at some of these big manufacturers, all waiting to be done. So silence from the manufacturers. I don't know whether they have to be like that. Again, I think the world's changing. I don't think you can be like that anymore. Everything is about transparency and about people coming out and saying what's going on. And I think when you don't say things, it just makes the problem worse, because you don't know what's going on. So I think this does kind of confuse me as to if there are problems that are being solved, then we need to know about them and being told about them. I don't know what medium that would be in, whether they can use the press, or there is, I said about the Caravan Writers Guild before, those guys, they're passionate about it, and let's face it, they don't have a huge amount to talk about a lot of the time. So if they had some juicy content, I think it would be very good. And the Caravan Club and the magazines, there are ways of talking about these things, rather than them just talking about how great the products are all the time. I think that they have to come up and acknowledge that there has been and there still are issues, and what's being done about them. And I can only assume that the teams in the manufacturers are doing things about them. It's just we'd like to know. I was at one of the shows, the previews before, and I spoke to some of the guys who are in the production, and I know they work kind of 5 years ahead. So the things that we are talking about now, they are talking, they've already kind of worked those out for the past, for the next 3 or 4 years. And I know the new stuff they work on is normally about 5 years ahead. So there may be stuff in the pipeline that has been, that solves all these things, and they can go, yep, tick, 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 all done, all done, all done. But it'd be great to know about them. And that's where, maybe I should have been braver and sent that email, and I could, go up and ask and say, right, yeah, well, so, all right, they look fantastic, they're great, but what about that? What about this? Could you say categorically that those problems will be solved? Because that's what they need to do, I think, to ensure that you out there are confident to buy another one. If you've had any of these issues, or even heard about them, so you're worried about them, but again, I know I don't help because I'm out there talking about it. But I was on the forum the other day, or Facebook page, and someone said, "Oh, I've joined the Swift cracked sunroof owners club," and I thought, well, you know, that isn't a good position to be in when people are, you know, joining a club, because there's so many people that have spoken about this on this particular site or Facebook page, that they're saying they're joining a club because everyone's, you know, in that, so that it's nearly inevitable that you're going to get an issue. But like I said, that could be only a small proportion of people, and there's lots of people out there that are fine, you know, and haven't had issues. But it seems to be a when not if scenario with those. So that is something that I think the manufacturers could do better, is speak about it and be open and install that confidence back in you. Because if you have had that problem, the likelihood is you know about it, you know that everyone else knows about it. Are you going to buy another product when it's being built in the same way? So you've had a problem with the cant rail leaking, and that was 5 years old. So now you're in a position where you think, actually, I want to buy a new Caravan, and you know about that issue. And the best thing that could happen is if the manufacturer said, right, well, that cant rail problem isn't a problem anymore, so you're now more confident to buy that product. If they turn around and say, well, yeah, actually, it's going to be the same, and in 4 or 5 years' time, you're going to get the same issue, the chances are, and I wouldn't, you're not going to buy another product, are you? You buy another manufacturer, or even worse, you won't buy at all, and then you come out of the industry. And I've spoken about that in previous videos. That is, I think, like I said at the beginning of this rather long-winded video, apologize for that, the silent killer is that if people aren't going to buy new Caravans and they're coming out of the industry because they've had an issue and they're not confident in the product and the manufacturers of solving that problem, that's going to be the death of it. And in today's world, where we're not selling many Caravans now, we've got sales and things going on. We're in June now in 2025, and already I think there's going to be some people, some dealers panicking because they've still got 2024 product to sell. The 2025s are still out there. They're reducing the product just to move them on and not making any money on it. And then the manufacturers are asking for next year's quota. You know, what are you going to order? And you've got a load of stuff on the forecourt. You're not going to order anything. So that is an issue these days. At the moment, we cannot afford for the product to be letting us down as well, and the confidence in the product to not be there, so that you then don't go and buy a new one. Like I said before, and I say I hate to go on about this. I know there will be new people to this video who haven't watched my other videos. Confidence is the key. Is you have to be confident that the products that you're buying haven't got some of the issues that you've already had, and you want to know that you can buy with confidence. And that's what they were doing in the 17 and 18. They were buying to get out of an issue. You're not going to do that again. And now everyone knows about these problems. You know, you're going to be thinking, well, do I buy a 2025 or 6 Caravan next year, knowing that there could well be a potential problem, or not knowing that they fixed it? That's the transparency thing. That's what we need to know. So if it has been fixed, then we need to know about it. I think to reinstall that confidence in the consumer and the salespeople as well. Like I said in my last video, I find it very difficult to sell something if I'm not 100% confident in it. And that's one of the reasons I came out anew as well, because I was kind of fed up with not being in the position where I can really kind of get behind the product. If one of the manufacturers came up and said, right, we've done this, we've done that, we've done the other, I would be the first to say, look, buy this, don't buy anything else, because they've come out first, they have said it. If other people, manufacturers, follow that suit, then it's kind of a bit diluted. You have to be the first one to do it to really give the full effect of that risk, and it is a risk. Because you know you could be in a position where, look, it's going to be fixed in the next couple of years, but you know next year we're going to be building it in the same way, so that means you know that those sales could be affected. But then the following year, when it does actually kick in, that's when everyone goes and buys that product. So if you're still with me, thank you very much for that. Just to summarize, there are issues that I believe are still being built in the same way, that we're going to into the products that we're going to see future issues in. if that isn't the case, we need to know about it. We need the transparency, and we need the manufacturer to tell us about it. I think there's a silent killer of the industry where, people are, the manufacturers are expecting customers to buy caravans, or new customers to come into the market and not know about the old issues. But we all do research on the internet these days, and we're certainly going to find out if there are issues. And if you've got a Facebook page saying, "I'm now in the Swift Cracked Sunroof Club," that's not going to help. And I know hopefully that is one of the things that has been or is being solved. And there may well be a press release, there may well be a piece in the Practical Caravan about it. I don't know. I still find it very difficult to believe that would be the case. Everything is also, it's been perceived as being glossy and great when it isn't. So I can't see how there would be anything in the popular press about that. But they could do it themselves. It's easy to do a YouTube video. All you need is a phone and some idiot stood in front of them talking. It's not hard to do. So they could do it themselves. So that would be the best case scenario, is that if the manufacturers came out and were proactive and were transparent about what's going on and what they're doing about it, it would then reinstall that confidence in the market. And I think we could maybe drag ourselves out this hole. I see it as the manufacturers are between a rock and a hard place. So you've got weight, you've got the price. We've also got the customer's expectations, which I didn't talk about earlier, which I should have done. The expectations of what the product should be for them to buy it have gone through the roof. Now I do put that squarely at the foot of the consumer. We want it all singing, all dancing. And some people say, "Oh no, I don't want that. I want a nice simple caravan that I could tow behind the car, and I don't want it to go wrong." The problem is, when the manufacturers make something like that, no one buys it. Swift tried it with the Freedom. The consumers were saying, "I don't want gas in there and I don't want a shower." So they made the Freedom, no one bought it. Because they said, well, yeah, that's great, that's fantastic. Oh, do you want to put a deposit on it? Well, no, because in case, when I want to sell it, I might not be able to sell it because, it hasn't got any gas in it and it hasn't got a shower in it. And there might be one time when I need to use a shower actually. So no, I won't, I'll go and buy the other one. So that's the issue the manufacturers have. I did also speak to a fridge manufacturer. I said, why don't we go back to a basic fridge with a spark generator and no printed circuit boards? And they said, they tried, but the consumer doesn't want it because it's a lot easier for them. It's more cost effective. It's cheaper, and therefore, they don't have so many warranty claims and all this kind of thing. So there are simple fridges out there that you could put in that are much more robust than having all these printed circuit boards and touch screens, everything, and buttons that fail and everything like that. But apparently, the consumer doesn't want them. Now, obviously you're the consumer. That would be interesting for you to put in the comments whether that is the case or not. Do you want a simpler caravan that is not going to fail and is going to hold its price? Because even now, when I'm buying a pre-owned Swift with a sunroof in it, I'm thinking in my head, well, that could cost me £1,000 to replace that. So I'm starting to adjust my figures that I give out because the likelihood is that I might have to replace that within the warranty term. So that does have an effect on the residual values of products. The more simpler it is, the easier it is to fix, and the less we have to spend on it to actually get it back out there and put a warranty on it. Oh, another thing I did think that especially with the sunroofs, is one of the easiest way to solve the problem overnight is to get rid of it. Chuck it out, forget it. It's going to make the caravan cheaper because you haven't got the construction methods of having to cut a hole and fit it all and do all that kind of stuff, and you've got the sunroof itself. That's £400 or whatever it is. That could come off the price of the caravan. There must be an algorithm somewhere that you could work out whether not having a sunroof in a Swift caravan would cost you X amount of sales, but then it would cost you no warranty and no negative PR. So what would that look like? Would you lose more sales? Would it cost the company more money in lost sales than it would in warranty work and negative PR? I don't think so. I think that you could come up with something else that you could do with that space and not put a sunroof in it whatsoever. Maybe have the old bigger Hecky roof light or something like that. I'm not sure. But you know, I often wonder whether it is a case of they just put it in there because they have put it in there and that's what they've always done, and they're not brave enough to take it out. I don't know. But again, I'm not a caravan manufacturer, and it's easy for me to say these things. That's my thoughts on it. It'd be interesting, as always, for you to put some things in the comments and let me know what you think. Am I on the right track? Am I well off the beaten track? You know, am I thinking, oh, you know, all these problems are out there, but it's actually not as bad as I'm making it out? I know I'm putting people off caravanning because of all the issues. It makes you think twice, but I'd rather do that and then approach the issue and get it out there rather than it coming up behind and biting the industry in the backside. And you know, people just stop buying caravans, and then we start to lose manufacturers, and then you know the fantastic pastime of caravan is no more, you know, and that is, I think, is a distinct possibility. So yeah, put your comments down below. Let me know what you think. Keep an eye out for Caravan Guru. I'm changing my ideal caravan and I'm calling it Caravan Guru. There's lots of things going on here at Atlantic Caravans. I'm changing how I'm doing things. I'm shutting the workshop or handing the workshop over. I'm closing the shop. I'm concentrating on sales, and I'll do a proper video on that in the future. So I will have more time on my hands, which you might think, oh bloody hell, I was going to make more videos. But the Caravan Guru thing, I'm going to try and get my knowledge into an online database that you can access at any time. So that's, rather than Caravan, my ideal caravan, it's going to be called Caravan Guru, and I'm going to do that. Also, I'm going to be probably doing a bit more Caravan Radio as well. So keep an eye out on Caravan Radio. Just Google that. That's a fantastic thing out there. The music's really good and there's lots of information on there, and that's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And you should start to see the Caravan Radio team at shows around the country. So it would be good to keep an eye out for them and tune in as well. All we got to do is type in Caravan Radio. It comes up on the internet and you can use, there's an online way of listening to that, but it's very good. So, yeah, I'll see you next time, and I'll talk about what I'm doing at Atlantic, and I'll probably have lots of information, more thoughts when I listen to your, read your comments, and more stuff will come out. And I'll see you next time. Thank you very much.